We are here today with the Indian High Commissioner to Mauritius, and of course for the past week the double tax agreement between Mauritius and India has been at the center of attention of everybody in Mauritius and in India and abroad also. So we'll be talking with High Commissioner about the treaty and its consequences and how the treaty came out to be like it is today. Shri Mudgal, thank you very much for answering our question.
Thank you so much.
We are very used to hearing, I quote, the words, the sentence, India will not harm the interests of Mauritius. These words have been uttered by former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and by the current Prime Minister Narendra Modi. How have the interests of Mauritius been upheld, been preserved in this new tax treaty?
This document is an outcome of a very careful consultation process between the two countries, where in fact the core concerns of Mauritius played an important role in coming to what we have come to. It's a long process. It didn't start recently. It has been going on for quite some time. And the reason why it has taken so long, that on both sides we are trying to make sure that the outcome is an optimal outcome and does not hurt the interest of Mauritius. This has been reflected in the document. I'm sure the experts have commented on those provisions. So in my view, yes, it's a good document. It's a balanced document and will not only protect but further promote the interest of the Mauritian financial services in the years to come.
If you try to get specific about these interests from the Indian perspective, what were the interests that have had to be protected?
As far as India is concerned, we were trying to find a way out for bringing this arrangement to the contemporary time, because the financial regulation mechanism regime has been evolving globally within India, and this treaty was in a way falling behind time. And in case we did not really bring the necessary amendments, then the changing time would have affected, the changing global regime would have affected, the changing Indian domestic situation would have affected. So our interest was basically the Mauritian interest as well. It was not really purely Indian interest we were looking at. We didn't want to be caught unaware till those circumstances would have taken a toll on us. In fact, already this arrangement was facing difficulty on account of, there was lack of what is called certainty in the instrument. These prolonged negotiations sent the signal that there was something to be done but was not being done, right? And I think in doing so we have sent a signal, whatever has had to be done has been done, and it has been done in a manner which really brings greater certainty to the instrument and does not really disturb in any significant manner the inherent strengths of the Mauritian jurisdiction.
Let's talk rightly so about the strength of the Mauritian jurisdiction. In the immediate aftermath of the announcement of the new treaty, the local global business community have said that they are very worried that Singapore might leverage its actual treaty with India to attract businesses that were coming to Mauritius previously. How is India making sure that Mauritius is not in a worse off position compared to other international jurisdictions like, I would say, maybe Singapore, Cyprus, Netherlands, or Switzerland?
The Singapore Protocol links ties with the Mauritius. It says that whatever is done with the Mauritian treaty would also apply to those clauses with Singapore.
It took roughly 10 years for Mauritius and India to reach an agreement over the new treaty. How could we be certain that India and Singapore will not spend 10 years reaching a new agreement? This is actually one of the concerns of the global business community in Mauritius.
See, if you look at the provision, as I say, the impact is automatic, right? But now we have to negotiate with them the level. Now, would it be the same as Mauritius or up or down? That I can't tell you right now. So that point has to be done.
So there's a possibility for it to be upper?
How the negotiations go, I don't know whether. But as I say, this is a kind of a theoretical apprehension. Our goal is identical for all such treaties. We are not really kind of going differentially in terms of the eventual goal. The eventual goal is to move towards source-based taxation. That is the general goal that we have in mind with respect to all treaties. Now, once that application is uniform in all our treaties, then in my view Mauritius has an advantage, because Mauritius is a more competitive jurisdiction. You have some inherent advantages of being a low cost, more competitive jurisdiction. So once the same yardstick is applied to all treaties, you have the advantage.
But do you have an idea about the time frame during which negotiations need to be concluded with Singapore?
You see, it will be in their interest to conclude it quickly, because you have to understand the uncertainty which Mauritian jurisdiction was facing till recently. Now that uncertainty has shifted to that jurisdiction, because we have to find a solution to that.
Quite a few times you have used the word deadline in a recent interview with the press in Mauritius. Does the fact that a deadline existed, a timeline, you also used the word timeline, existed in the Mauritian-Indian negotiation, did that mean that a notice of termination would have been issued had we not successfully negotiated, had we not found a suitable outcome, agreeable, on which both India and Mauritius agreed upon?
No, I would rather say, in fact, if you look at the totality of the circumstances both globally, within India, and bilaterally, we had to find a solution, right? Absence of a solution would have resulted in huge uncertainty, right? So absence of a solution was no more a solution, in fact. And this was also, in fact, our own commitment to bringing GAR starting April next year. Now, I have said this earlier in one of the interviews. I said, in fact, friends come together and find a solution before it's late. And that is what we have done. It was becoming late, in fact.
So the lateness point for Singapore, would the lateness point also be the 1st April 2017 with the entry?
Everybody knows it, because because GAR is not really Mauritius specific. GAR is a horizontal provision. It will impact all transactions without discrimination.
So would I be right in reformulating it in that way? Singapore too has an interest in finding a solution before 1st of April 2017.
I comfort in saying that these two things are linked. And these are linked in the Singapore document, right? So I'm sure when it is linked, there will be interest on both sides to find a timely answer to that.
Excellency, the renegotiated treaty was announced last week, the same day and the same moment actually as the $350 million US package of grant of aid, direct aid to Mauritius. How do we not link the renegotiated treaty with the aid package and construe this grant as a compensation for lost revenue or opportunities for our global business sector?
You see, calling it compensation for lost revenue will be, I think, trying to define it too narrowly. You see, when you talk about a relationship, within that larger relationship, in a way, everything is linked, isn't it? For example, we have announced the ICCR scholarships about 2 weeks ago. Everything that we do is linked to a larger goodwill, isn't it? Because when we say we have wonderful, unique relationship. Now, what is that wonderful, unique relationship? How do we define it? Everything is unique in that relationship, which means we try to find the best possible answers to the challenges which come our way. We were, in fact, talking about the possibility of, for example, when Prime Minister announced $500 million line of credit when he came. Then in the larger India-Africa Forum Summit, Prime Minister again announced his $10 billion line of credit for Africa and a large amount of grant for the region. This cooperation is an ongoing process. When you are in a comprehensive ongoing process, things will keep happening. And they will also happen sometimes simultaneously.
So can we expect another grant in the coming year or years of that scale?
For example, we have a $500 million line of credit available right now, in fact, right? That bears interest. But as I say, under the India-Africa Forum Summit, there are so many possibilities of tapping into resources. It all depends on how smartly we tap into those resources. Resources are available, opportunities are available. Somebody has to really square the circle, right? Come out with a project, a possibility, link it to the available financial arrangements, either bilaterally or within India-Africa arrangement, and do it.
High Commissioner, can we consider the $350 million US dollars aid to Mauritius as a no strings attached one when there is an agreement that Mauritius shall choose Indian construction firms for the earmarked projects?
This is no strings attached. Even, for example, when we say choose an Indian company, we are not imposing any company on Mauritius, nor we are imposing any methodology of choosing an Indian company. We have left the process completely to the Mauritian side. Use your laws, use your procedures, choose a company which you think meets your requirement in the best manner.
Did you think about maybe the guarantees that are there or could be there to ensure that no shady deals are brokered in the process of attributing contracts?
I think you have a very, very credible system of procurement. And I have absolutely no doubt that the process will result in selection of the best candidates and companies. So if the larger thing is done, then I'm sure the small will also be done in the manner it should be.
Could you maybe enlighten the people who will be watching us about the rationale behind India financing the specific projects mentioned so far? Are we talking about financing the construction of Parliament and Prime Minister's office, financing Inherited City, financing part of the Mauritius International Finance Center, and also part of the new light rail system that will most probably come back on the rails? So what was the rationale behind financing those and not other projects?
Rationale was what was important for Mauritius. It was decided by Mauritius. You see, we were not in a position to tell Mauritius what's important for them. It will neither be appropriate nor we have the capability. Mauritius indicated their priorities, and as good friends we agreed.
So we would be wrong in construing those projects as having some kind of seal of approval, Indian seal of approval?
No, see, we had no idea, strictly speaking. You have to determine what's good for you. I cannot do it. I can agree with you when you say something is important for you, but I cannot tell you what's important for you. So that is what the whole basis of this decision was. Please tell us where we can stand with you, and wherever you tell us, we'll stand there.
Many Mauritians have been wondering since a week why more people-oriented projects. We might be thinking about social housing, maybe new schools, new hospitals, bettering the water distribution, have not been financed through this aid. What can you tell them to reassure them? Do you share their concern in some way or another?
The priorities in terms of projects have been determined by Mauritian authorities. We as good friends have said, all right, if that is so, we will be there, right? But as I said earlier, in fact, there are other financial arrangements available. Now, in case, for example, there is a project which the Mauritian authorities feel should be taken up, we can definitely take up under the existing line of credit, or we can discuss and find some other means of standing with our friends in Mauritius. You know, since those projects were not discussed, I have no idea how to respond to that. But if they are discussed in future, I am sure we would always be forthcoming to looking at those projects and trying to see how best we could come forward with our support.
Shri Mudgal, you are going back to Delhi in a month's time roughly. You have actively contributed to the process of finalizing this treaty. What are your feelings actually, more personal note on that treaty? What do you feel it's about? It's a feeling of pride, of joy, of relief? What do you feel going back to India right now?
This is, again, if I talk only about this aspect, I will be really defining last 3 years in a very narrow perspective. This was one of the things. There were many other very important things which will always remain in our memory as regards my stay here. Coming down to this specific development, I think not only me, all those who were involved in this process would feel happy that at least we have come to a good solution. Something which was being talked about for last almost 10 years was facing a certain timeline for a good solution, and I think I would remember this as something good that we could do before it was too late, and something that was acceptable on both sides, something that protected the interests on both sides, and something that can really bring in a new era in this important sector.
Staying on what you said about the fact that India and Mauritius relationship doesn't narrow down to a treaty, it's deeper, it's more wide-ranging than that. Will the treaty be the single most important achievement that you've reached in Mauritius, or maybe on another personal note, different notes, do you take back home more memorable moments or more memorable achievements?
There are many in fact. You see, as I say, relationship between two countries, two people, to society, it's a continuous process. When I came here, things were going on. I'm happy some of those we concluded. I'm sure I will leave behind certain things which are ongoing, and my successor will carry forward and will conclude. I'm happy that at least what I inherited when I came here, most of those things have come to some degree of conclusion. But I have added many more, which I will not be able to conclude during my time, and I'm sure whosoever comes in my place will carry forward that agenda and conclude those.
You've been here for 2 years, little more than 2 years going back. Now you have hands-on experience on what the relationship between Mauritius and India is, what the people of Mauritius are. We have many words to define the relationship: Chota Bharat, Bada Bhai, Chota Bhai, Ma Bharat, etc. How would you define, now that you know the country, now that you know the people, now that you know the environment, the ecosystem of Mauritius, how would you define the relationship between India and Mauritius?
I had served almost 30 years in diplomatic service before coming to Mauritius. I have spent time with many countries, in many countries in fact. Have understood a whole range of relationships. What I can tell you is that India-Mauritius relationship is really unique in itself. It's rooted in history, it's rooted in our shared value system, it's rooted in that goodwill, which is immense in fact. It is rooted in that feeling for each other. Some of the expressions you mentioned in the interview, those are not really ordinary expressions. This is one relationship where, in fact, before thinking about yourself, you think about the other, right? That is the important part. India, before thinking about Indian interest, will also think about Mauritian interest, and vice versa. It's a very unique relationship, no? So that is how I define it. There is no other expression. It's an extraordinary and unique relationship.
Shri Mudgal, thank you very much for having taken the time to answer our questions.